Hello and welcome to Restoration DIY. You join me this week finishing a holoform, or vase. I originally started this at the end of 2019. It has stood on my bench unfinished for over a year, basically because I couldn't work out how to complete it. The problems began when the mortise in the base split whilst the piece was mounted on the 4-jaw chuck. The damage was quite bad and meant I could only mount it in the coal jaws. At this point the workpiece was too heavy to be supported in that way, so I gave up on it. It's a year later and I now have the confidence and the experience to get it finished. I'm still using the coal jaws on the chuck, but now with the addition of a piece of hardwood down the centre of the vase, between the tailstock and the base section. This gives the extra support to allow me to turn material away from the midsection. I'm using the 1/2 bowl gouge to shear scrape and a negative rake scraper to remove the tool marks. At this stage I will not be completely finishing this section, I only want to remove material to get to round. With the outer surface done for now, I can move on to cleaning out the inside, and as before, for this I will be using the Easy Wood Tools finisher. The wood is very dry and for a start it was just chipping. Not something I have experienced before. Not a lot to see in this clip, but the carbide cutter was leaving a few tool marks, so I decided to use a side cutting scraper. I normally use this on bowl rims to create an undercut, but I thought I'd try it to smooth the inside. It didn't do a very good job. I ended up making a deep gouge about 3 rings down. So I parked this and moved on to making the 3 rings for the top section. In this clip I am setting up the mitre fence. The rings for this project have 12 segments with a 75-degree angle at each end. With the mitre fence set, it's time to cut the segments for the remaining 3 rings. The walnut I'm using is the leftover bits from the walnut and purple heart bowl. You can find that little project on the video playlist. The segments go together much the same as in the previous projects, with the addition of 4mm thick maple between each segment, except for the plain top ring. This is all held together with Type Bond 2 and clamped overnight with a single hose clamp. With the last ring glued and clamped, I left them overnight and the next day I passed them all through the drum sander, being careful not to take too much off on the maple side, only having 4mm to play with. All nicely sanded up, I then glued them together, being careful to maintain the half bond pattern. And with the last ring in place, I used a chuck to add weight to squeeze the glue joints. Moving back to the lathe, I decided to try and get a better finish on the inside surface. For this, I used the Simon Hope negative rake scraper. It was a bit tight with the tailstock in place, but it did what I wanted, and with a good sanding from 80 to 180 grit, I could add some sealer and wax to finish. The next day, I mounted the top section in the coal jaws and began turning the outer surface. As before, I only needed to get this to round. The main job here is to hollow out the inside and finish it, so it can be glued to the rest of the vase. Quick tidy up with a scraper and it's ready for sanding, then some sealer and finishing wax. I turned the top around so I could work on the rim. I only needed to do the inner piece as this would be inaccessible with the tailstock in place. I gently nibbled away with the carbide cutter and use the negative rake scraper to fine-tune the curves. For more sanding, a wipe down with denatured alcohol, sanding sealer and wax to finish, and the top was ready to glue to the rest of the vase. I liberally applied glue to the top section and offered it up, being careful to make sure the two pieces were centered on each other. Unfortunately, I didn't pay enough attention to the half bond pattern, and there is a slight misalignment. But in hindsight, I think it adds character. Another day has passed and it's time to start shaping the outside surface. With the tailstock in place, I hoped the workpiece would not move, but the more I did, the more I realised it was moving off centre. I persevered for a while, but eventually I had to give in, and I made a cone-shaped caul for the tailstock. I should have done this in the first place, and it's much safer. You can see the caul between the tailstock and the rim. With that in place, I could apply all the pressure I needed to the outer surface with a negative rake scraper. Skew chisel to blend and fare the convex curves, and the negative rake scraper to do the rest. Final session of Oh Glorious sanding from 80 to 600 grit, and it was time for the finishing. First off, a thorough rub down with denatured alcohol. Followed up with a generous application of sanding sealer. a D-nib with fine wire wool, Yorkshire grit abrasive paste for a final smoothing, two coats of wood wax 22, polished off with clean paper towel to add a deep lustre. And last but not least, Hampshire Sheen microcrystalline wax, 2 coats. All finished. This has been over a year in the making, so thank you for watching. I will be uploading more very soon, and I hope to see you in the next one. Please subscribe, the thumbs up will be great, and a comment below is always welcome. Goodbye for now.